let's see what this passage is basically saying to us. Okay, so I'm going to quickly take notes. So guys, before I even start, these type of complex passages which has a lot of jargon, a lot of this, technical language, which is, by the way, none of that which is important. You really need to be smart here and focus on what is going on, what's the point, rather than getting stuck in the details. And let me show you what I mean. And again, I'm gonna use this, a visual, this my visual technique of just using symbolic language and sometimes even GPS and ignoring the details, like I did over here. You see, and here. So let's start. It says supernova in the Milky Way are the likeliest source for most of the cosmic rays reaching the Earth. So probably there is some type of, so supernova is probably is a likeliest source. So it is likely, okay, likely that supernova is a source of something. Okay, that is it. Okay, so supernova is likely a source for something, and because of this word likely, I think that the author is trying to come up with a speculation or probably a hypothesis. Okay, let's keep on going. However, okay, this however is basically telling me almost like the main point of what the author is going to try to do over here. He is probably going to prove that this speculation, this hypothesis, is wrong. Okay, so probably I'm seeing some type of rebuttal, a U-turn, and some detail which is gonna disprove this position over here. Calculations show that supernova cannot produce ultra high energy cosmic rays, blah 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 blah, which have energies exceeding 10 to the power 18 electron volts. So again, a lot of jargon. All I have to do is present this dash, and whatever this detail is basically giving me a rebuttal against this position over here. It would seem sensible, okay? It would seem, okay, guys, I really want you to pay attention to these type of language over here. So whenever you see like it would seem something like this, the author basically trying to say that in reality that is not the case. And let me show you what I mean here. It would seem sensible to seek the source of these in the universe's most conspicuous energy facts. Quasars and gamma rays, I don't know what they are, burst billions of light years away from the Earth. But okay, so there's almost like a concession. Okay, so the author is saying that hey, it might make some sense, but in reality, so there is kind of like concession, and the easiest way to recognize concession is you will see this yes but language, that the author initially is gonna slightly agree with something, but then he's just gonna give evidence of his disagreement, the yes and the but concession. So initially he said that hey, it might seem sense, but here comes the rebuttal. UHECRS tends to collide with photons of the cosmic microwave background pervasive radiation that is a relic of the early universe. The odds the odds favor a collision every 20 million light years, each collision costing 20% of the cosmic ray's energy. Consequently, okay, so after giving his concession and explaining things a little bit, so probably the author is coming up with his final conclusion. Consequently, no cosmic ray travels much beyond 100 million light years light years can retain the energy observed in the UHECRS. So the way he basically come up with his final conclusion is that there is no cosmic ray that can travel much beyond. Okay, much beyond. So I mean, they can travel to 100 million, maybe a little more than 100 million light years, but not much beyond. Can retain the energy obsessed in the blood. So finally, he comes with a conclusion. Okay, so you see, guys, on the left, I mean, there is some crazy jargon which is going on to the point that you're like, huh? Like, what the hell? what on earth this crazy stuff is about. In reality, what you need to do is basically know what the author is basically trying to do here. So let's just give a quick recap of what just happened. So initially, this likely word told me that the author basically introduced his introductory statement by coming up with some speculation that this supernova is a source of something. I see a however, so I already know that the author is probably going to come up with a rebuttal, so he disagreed with the statement. Then he concedes to the previous statement a little bit by saying that, yeah, it might make some sense, but then he gave another explanation over here, okay, that justified the fact that this is just a mere speculation. It is not possible. Calculation and testing and experiments are proving something else. And then he conclude that, hey, you know what? Whatever this stuff is, it cannot go much beyond 100 million. I don't care what that is. I only care about the structure. Now, basically, that I know using this visualizing technique and this GPS that I call, I can basically go to the answer choices and read only the information which is necessary and only then process. So I have not literally touched the context. I have only considered the structure. So here it goes. It can be inferred, okay, that the author of the passage would agree with which of the following about the origin of the UHCRs at which reach the Earth. So, okay, so, sorry. Okay, so basically he is saying that, hey, if this is the Earth, and let's say this is the source, so it can be inferred that the author of the passage would agree with which of the following about the origin, okay, about the origin, let's call it ORG, origin of this, whatever this is, that reaches the Earth. So according to the author, what can be predicted or inferred about, this weird rays, whatever this is, and its origin and reaching the Earth. So let's see. I'm going to start with option C. The origin is most likely no more than a little over 100 million light years away from the Earth. So the second I read this, now it is time to go back to the passage and be specific and consider the context. Now remember, guys, before I was only considering what is going on a structural level, on a general level, not diving in deeply. But now I have no choice because I'm looking for an inference question. And what I'm going to do is use my map and kind of like use these answer choices to see where did the author basically describe this information. So I do remember reading some 100 million, yeah, over here, okay? So what I need to do is kind of like read this super carefully, come over here, see if this matches. If it matches, I can keep it. If it doesn't, I can throw it. Okay, so it says over here, consequently, no cosmic ray traveling much beyond 100 million light years can retain the energy observed in the USCR. So basically, he's saying that the maximum range or the maximum limit of these rays, whatever this stuff is a little more than, not much, it's saying not much beyond, or you can say slightly a little more than 100 million light years. So if this is the information that the C is saying, then definitely I'm going to pick it. So I'm going to come back to the answer choice and read it again. The origin is most likely no more than a little over. No more than a little over. No cosmic rays traveling much more no cosmic rays traveling much beyond 100 million. No more than a little over 100 million light years. Yeah, I think this is just like a rephrase of this last statement, so I'm going to keep this one, okay? The origin is most likely somewhat other than very distant quasars or gamma rays burst. Okay. I do remember reading about these weird names of whatever these rays are. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the passage, be specific, read it carefully, and then come back to the answer choice B and see if it matches or not. So where is these quasars and whatever that, yeah, quasars and gammas. Okay, so it starts by, it would seem sensible to seek the source of these in the universe's most conspicuous energy factories, like quasars and gamma rays burst billions of light years away from the Earth, but UHCRs tends to collide with photons of the cosmos. So yeah, So the author is basically trying to say over here that it would seem like these are the origins, but in reality, this is not the case. He only said that it would seem like it's true, but after completing his concession, he said that is not the case. So anything which says that these are not basically the sources of these whatever these rays are, which is basically reaching the earth, if they are saying the same thing, it's going to be the right answer. The origin is most likely something other than. Okay, so something other than, basically not, then very distant quasars and gamma rays. Okay, yeah, I think it's correct because these two are not the origins, right? Okay. Moving on. The origin is something other than supernovas in the Milky Way. The origin is something other than the supernovas in the Milky Way. I think that's true. Why? Because supernovas in the Milky Way are the likeliest source for most of the cosmic rays. However, so the author basically proved that this is not true with the calculation. So the origin is something other than, basically the origin is not supernova in the Milky Way. Yeah, it's true. So I think answers are A, B, and C. So you guys, you following how I basically tackled this one? And it was really different. It is a lot different to what I basically do in this picking one answer from all the answer choices. Were you clear that how I was basically considering each and every single one on an individual level and trying to, you know, cross check every information? Were you able to get this?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. So, so guys, these box questions or multiple, select options. I mean, the way they are time consuming is it's almost like they are three questions within one question. Why? Because in normal questions like over here, all you need to do is focus on this, come up with an answer choice, come to the answer choices, eliminate whatever which is not matching, and pick the right answer. However, your time is going to be consumed a lot over here because you literally need to consider every answer choice, go back to the passage, match it with the information. If match is there, you keep it. If match is not there, you throw it. So it's a bit time
Uh,
consuming. Yeah.
ABD.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, for option B, like in the passage, it is like it would seem sensible that these conspicuous energy factories like those Q and gamma
Mm-hmm.
rays, but then we have those ultra high energy. And the question is saying that what is the origin of UHEC that reach Earth?
Mm-hmm.
So how can we consider them as the origin?
We are not considering them as origin. We are not considering this origin. Is it saying other than? Other than basically means not. Over here it says that quasars and gamma rays, the author said it may seem like they're not the case, but in reality they're not. This but is basically telling me that these two, okay, let me just, these two, these two are basically not. And if you come back to the B, it's saying the origin is most likely something other than. In reality, if you want to rephrase it, they're saying the origin is not quasars
Yes.
and gamma rays. You following?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, okay, cool. Okay, question number two. In the context of the author's argument, the last sentence performs which of the following functions? Okay, so let's go back to the last sentence. I do believe we have read it, but let's try to understand its purpose. Like the point, like what's the point, right? It says the last sentence perform, yeah, function, the point. So consequently, no cosmic rays traveling much beyond 100 million light years can retain the energy observed in the UHCR. So the author is basically trying to conclude over here that, hey man, whatever this speculation was that, the supernova is likely the source of this cosmic rays, this calculation, all of this detail is basically presenting the opposite, and therefore there is no way that the source can be the supernova. So it's more of like it's like a concluding statement in the author, in which the author is trying to wrap the whole argument into its final component. So let's see if this explanation kind of like somewhat is similar to what the author or what the answer choice is saying. It states the main conclusion that the author is seeking to establish. Main conclusion that the author is seeking to establish. Okay, I like it. Let's keep it for now. It overturns an assumption on which an opposition position depends. It is overturning, so it is basically attacking an assumption on which the opposing position depends. Is this an assumption? Okay, so first of all, I think we really need to understand the nuanced definition of assumptions. So if the author would have started by saying that this is the argument, this is what's assuming, and these are the loopholes that they have not considered, therefore it is bad because of this. However, that is not the case. The author is basically bringing in evidence in the form of calculations, in the form of experiments, that hey, what your speculation is wrong. So basically the author in the last sentence is not trying to come up with any, finding assumptions and then attacking them. He is basically coming up with a straight upfront evidence, which is basically dismantling this mere speculation. So D is definitely wrong. It is a conclusion drawn in the course of refuting a potential explanation. Ooh. It is a conclusion drawn, it states the main conclusion, okay, in the course of refuting potential explanation. A potential explanation. Likely. So C is a lot better answer than E. Why? Because it is literally stating the fact that, the mere speculation and the likely hypothesis, this conclusion is literally dismantling it or presenting a rebuttal against this potential explanation. So C is a lot better than E. Because E is saying that it says the main conclusion the author is trying to establish. C is a lot better answer. Let's keep on going. It shows that an apparently plausible position is actually self-contradictory. Okay, I mean self-contradictory. Again, we need to understand the nuances of this language. Self-contradictory argument is something to the effect of, let's say, I say that I'm a very cool person, but right after next what I'm basically describing, it shows that I lose my cool instantly. Now I'm self-contradicting my own self. If the author would have started by something saying that, hey, supernova is the source and it is likely a speculation. However, the scientists who tried to prove that presented a counter-argument against their own hypothesis. Now, this is self-contradiction. This is telling me that now, the statement or the hypothesis is contradicting itself. However, in reality, the author says that no, this was the speculation, this was the hypothesis. However, the calculations are basically telling us something else. So self-contradictory is definitely, B is definitely wrong because of this word self-contradictory. Let's read A. It explains a criteria that was employed or used earlier in the argument. It is explaining a criteria that was utilized earlier in the argument. A seems to be a very alluring answer because it does seem to explain a criteria, okay, which was utilized earlier in the argument. So basically it is explaining this calculations and all the procedure. A is a pretty tricky and alluring answer. I think A would have been an absolute correct answer if, this was not the final concluding statement of the author, and if there was something else that the author had to say, then this would have been a perfect, this description would have described this perfectly. Why? Because now it's just an explanation about, the constraints that were utilized earlier in the argument. The calculation, it's basically, giving me more details about the calculations. However, it is not exactly an explanation. It is more of a concluding statement that the author is basically trying to use in order to attack this initial, initial statement. So even though A seems to be a pretty good trap answer, I'm gonna go with C. You guys following so far? Do you have any questions regarding this one?
No.
Okay,